Alright, so I have this medium-sized piece of clay here, and I'm going to make a plate. So the first thing you need to do once you have it centered and it's in this rounded shape is start to flatten it out. So to do that, use this muscular part of your hand here, the kind of fat part. Put it right in the center, bring your elbow up, and really push down in the center, and then come out towards the outside of the clay, and then back into the middle. You kind of want to repeat directions, so if you go from right to left, then you want to go from left to right, so it puts the same amount of pressure in one direction as it does in the other. While you're doing this, keep your arm locked into your leg, locked into your body like this, your centering hand, and hold it right against the clay as if you were centering it, to make sure that as you're pushing the clay on the top, you're keeping it centered here with your left hand. So my left hand is staying stable, pushing down with my right hand, and then I'm going to bring that right hand out to flatten the top out. And I'm going to bring it right back into the middle to equalize that force, and I'm pushing down harder now. Back out. It's getting a little bit dry, so I'm just going to take some of the slip off my hands and redistribute it to the clay. Maybe get a little water. You're going for kind of a plateau shape at first. You want to spread it out to be the diameter of the foot that you plan to have when it's done. This back and forth is kind of the beginning of the annealing process, which is just putting pressure on the clay, back and forth, back and forth. What you're doing is relieving the stress that is inherent in the clay, where it's trying to pull in different directions as it dries. The more you anneal it, which is what I'm doing right now, the less likely it is to crack. Plates especially are prone to having an S crack in the bottom. And if you anneal it like this, you dramatically reduce the risk of getting that crack. So once you have this shape, I'm going to push it down just a bit more. So it's about an inch thick, maybe just a touch more, inch and a half. Probably more like an inch and a half. Once you have this shape, you need to put a hole in the center and pull it out so that you can start to create this dog bowl type of shape, which is just one step before you're actually going to finalize the plate. So instead of pulling it out the way I do when I make a bowl, which is like this, it's easier for me with a plate to put my right hand out here in the kind of centering position like my left hand was, use my left hand to actually put the hole in the middle, and I stabilize my thumb off the back side here. So I'm actually putting my finger down and pulling my middle finger out towards my thumb. I'm not pulling like this, because that'll push the outside in, which I don't want to have happen. I want the inside to come out. And my right hand is there to stabilize. And then also, once I start, I'll show you here. So I'm putting the hole in the middle, about half of this height. Put a little water there. And then I'm going to pull it out toward myself. And if you can see, it's starting to build this funny shape right here. I use my right hand there with the sponge to push down on it. So that's why I don't do it in the same way that I do the bowl. I need to have my right hand free to manage this piece that comes up and wants to become really sharp and difficult to work with. I want to keep it kind of low and fat and wide and easy to work with. So I just have my hand like this, and I'm pulling straight out like that towards my thumb, and my right hand is there to keep this lip from getting really sharp and wispy. And you stabilize your hand off the drip pan if you need to. Be sure not to push your fingers down, and don't let them ride up. You want them just to roll straight across the bottom of the clay, so that because you're building the floor of your plate, or the base of your plate here. You know, you don't want the plate to start here and go down. You don't want it to start here and go up. You want it to go straight across. And then if you have excess water in here, like I just did, you just absorb it with your sponge. A big part of why clay starts to tear or come apart is because of too much water. So you want to use as little water as possible when you're throwing. Just enough to make the throwing successful, but not so much that that it weakens the clay body and it'll start to crack and whatnot. So now I'm annealing again. You do it a lot with the plate, maybe 2 or 3 different stages throughout the process, maybe 6 times a piece. So that's my 3rd time. 4th. You could also do it with a metal rib or a wooden rib. I'll do those later. Alright, so now I have this shape that I kind of refer to as a dog bowl. I'm going to push it in a little bit to keep the sides either vertical or tilted in. I don't want them to tilt out just yet. I'm going to clean this up. Now I'm going to raise it just a bit because right now the sides, they're about this thick, which is too thick. So I'm going to raise it just the way I would raise anything. Get a little bit of water in there. The inside's really dry. Gonna pull it in, raise it again. Remember to move slowly as you're moving your hands on and off the clay. If you move really quickly or abruptly, you'll end up getting the clay out of center. So I'm just holding the clay to make sure it's nice and centered. Alright, so now I have kind of a deep bowl shape basically. I'm going to clean it up to get excess slip off and kind of prepare the lip or the edge, this part, to become the shoulder of the plate. So this is just peeling the slip off of the inside, and also it further anneals it. Again, if you start from the middle and go to the right, then start back from the right and go to the middle. The more you can be symmetrical with your movements, the better it is for the clay. So now what I want to do is either use my hand or some kind of straight rib, because the way I make plates a lot of times is to have more of a flat wing on them. A wing or shoulder, something like this. This area here is flat. And you use your outside hand kind of like a fulcrum. So you're pushing from the inside out, and using your outside hand kind of like a fulcrum. So there's clay right here. Imagine there's clay there, and you're pushing it over the lip of your finger. You're just pushing it out over. So get a little water in there. Maybe use your hand to disperse the water amongst the sides of the clay or along it. So I have my fingers underneath here as the fulcrum. Now I'm just going to push slowly and easily. I'm going to slow down the speed of the wheel a bit, because you're kind of asking the clay to do quite a bit here. It's stretching, becoming a lot wider, and laying down. You want it to do it really evenly. If the clay builds up on your rib, just clean it off. I like to keep this damp right through this phase to make sure that everything flows along really easily and doesn't start to catch or drag or get stuck. Now I'm going to switch this rib over to go for this really straight side. Be really gentle here. It's really fragile. When the clay is flat and approaching more of a horizontal surface, it's really delicate. I had forgotten this tool here, this little chamois that I use. Get it wet. It's what I use to prepare the lip. So once you get it to be this shape, don't have the wheel spinning very quickly at all. The centrifugal force of the circles will just flatten out the lip. It'll take this whole shoulder and just flatten it. So you want to take that chamois, if you want the edge to be all nice and smooth like I do, flip it over, put it on the edge like this, and it'll just smooth this whole area out. Hold it really steady. I'm going to come back in with this rib and make sure that it's flat in here. Then I'm going to use this curved side and really lay in this curve right here at the base. And go back in with the metal rib to make it smooth. And then lately I've been putting a little swirl in the bottom to get kind of some texture with the clay, or with the glaze. So try to spin it a little bit faster. And that'll just make kind of some texture when I glaze it. Now when you go to cut it off, use this wire, or use this wooden knife. Take some of the clay out from underneath with this. It's really hard to cut plates off without damaging them, so you just have to, well, it's easy, but it's also easy to mess up, so you just have to be careful. A lot of times I'll take this drip pan off to get it out of the way. And it just makes it a bit easier to cut off. What I do is turn the wheel really slowly and keep my left hand more stationary than my right, and I allow my right hand to move around the plate, making sure that my hands don't actually come into contact with it and touch the shoulder of it. You just have to pull it really tight, otherwise you'll cut the bottom off. There you go. Pull the bat up, set it on the shelf, and wait for it to dry.